This is episode 29 of the Python series, and in this episode we're going to be looking at exception handling. Alright, so an exception, when programming, when you talk about exceptions, an exception is nothing but an error. And errors can occur during runtime. For Python, I think it's only during runtime, because since it is an interpreted language, the program is going to be translated at runtime. So essentially, exceptions are errors that occur. So let's just write that definition there. That occur during runtime, right? So maybe in order for us to actually get started with exception handling, let's actually go ahead and create a program that tries to divide by 0. Right, let's do this. num1 it's 90, num2 is 0. Then we want to print num1 divided by num2. Right, so we do know that you cannot divide by 0, or rather division by 0 is undefined, but we're actually going to do that and try and execute that program. So let me just clear out the console there, then run the exception handling script, and we should get the 0 division error right there. Right, so that right there is an exception. An exception is an error that occurs during runtime. I forgot to say errors right here. Errors that occur during runtime. All right, so we should be able to write programs that are robust, right? Essentially, our programs should continue, or should at least be graceful in terms of when they come to when they encounter errors. So in Python, there's a way that we can handle errors, and is to use the try except block. All right. So essentially, the structure of the try except is like this. Let me just come down here, write the structure, then come back later on and take the statements that we want to execute. So we have try, right? Some statements, then except, right? And just put a pass over there. All right, so that's how you can go about with exception handling, right? You try something, then in the event that it gives you an exception, you go to the exception section right there. So maybe let me actually just go ahead and take this statement and put it over here. Then if we try to divide and something happens, or maybe it fails to divide, right, we simply want to print something right here. So we can just say an error occurred in the event that the division fails to go through. Let me just bring this back up, and then Control J to open the console, clear the console, then run the script one more time. So you see that this time around we are not going to get that trace back, because now we are making use of exception handling, and that is, we are making use of the try and except keywords. So you see that instead of giving us that trace back, we actually get this statement run, which says that an error occurred. And this is more useful, or rather we can say that in this case our program is gracefully degrading, because when we encounter an error, it's not exactly crashing and burning, but rather it's giving us some information about what actually has happened with the program. So we can actually so that's how you can make use of the try and except block, but you can actually even add more detail to the to the script, or rather to the program, right? Right here on the except keyword, right? So in Python there's a class called exception, and this class typically has code that allows you to handle exceptions, right? It has some attributes and some methods that allow you to handle exceptions. So if you want to make use of that class, you just put it just after the except keyword, right? So you say try, then some statements, right, that you want to try, or some statements that you suspect might give you some trouble or give you an exception. Then except, right, then you write the exception class right there, right? So typically when you create the exception class, you would want to instantiate an object from the exception class. So the way you do it is to say as, maybe let's just call the exception ex, or maybe just e, I think is fine, right? Then with the exception object now that you've created, you can actually go ahead and do something useful with it. So one of the things that you can actually do is to make use of the maybe let's see what we can do here. These are some of the methods that are available to us from the exception object. All right, maybe let me not print anything. Let me not make use of any of the beauty methods. Let me just print out the e. Right. After we say an error occurred, then we are going to display the error right there by making use of the exception object. So let me just go ahead and run the script one more time. And this time around, you see that we get some sort of description, right, of what the exception is. So it says that an error occurred, right? So this is the line number 8. Then we are going to print the exception object right there. So it's going to tell us that we've attempted to divide by what? By 0, or rather the division by 0 exception right there. So in that case, it now becomes more descriptive, right? So now that the user can exactly know what the problem is, right? So that's the essence of the try except block. Then there's another version to the try except, right, that typically has the finally clause at the very end. So maybe just to get us started, let's actually define a variable called pin, and pin is going to be equal to 1 2 3 4 5, rather 1 2 3 4. Then let me just go down past these comments. We want to try and get an attempt from the user to input the pin. So you can say enter the what? The pin, right? So that's what we want to do. So when the user attempts to enter the pin, we know that pin, if we look at pin, we can see that this is an integer, right? Actually not that, I wanted to put a comment right here. All right, it's just like that. So you can see that pin is an integer, is it? So it means that whenever, and we know that the input method, whatever it takes in, is going to be in a string. So the way we can fix this is to typecast this to an integer. So in this particular case, we are just making use of int because we know that we want an int. So we cannot allow to make use any other value that is not an integer, right? So that's why I'm not using eval here, because I know that my pin is an integer. So I want whatever input is going to be given to be evaluated to an integer. Then suppose that the user does input something that is not that cannot be cast to an integer. What do? I want to handle that exception, so I can say print we encountered the problem, right? Then we tell the problem to the user what the problem is, and we just print the exception there, is it? Then for this example, what we want to do is we want to make it so that finally, right, we are going to add a finally clause at the very end. We want something to happen, regardless of what happens, right? Whether the user did input a string or did input something that could not be converted to an integer, right? We still want to run some other code right here, is it? So maybe let's say this is a login system, right? So maybe what you can do, you can actually declare another variable right here called counter. Then we can set it to 3, right? So we want to make it so that whenever the user, even if a user fails, inputs a string that's not going to be cast to an integer, right? We still want to decrement the counters Is it much like the how you typically get 3 chances to input the correct pin? Otherwise, the account is going to be blocked, right? That's what we want to try to achieve right here. So finally, we simply want to take a counter and decrement counter by 1. Is it? Then, so maybe what we can do, since we are going to be decrementing this, we need to put this inside of a loop. So we are saying while counter is not equal to 0, right? While counter is not equal to 0, we want to run these statements right here. Let me just fix the indentation real quick. All right, so while counter is not equal to 0, we want to try and convert the user's input into an integer. Right, in the event that the user's input fails to be converted to an integer, I want to tell them that we encountered a problem. Then we tell them the problem. But even there was an exception, we still want to decrement the counter so that the user is left with two chances. And if they fail on the next attempt, they're left with 1 chance. And if they fail on the final attempt, right, we want to tell them that the account has been blocked. So we can now come down here and say if counter equal to 0, right, simply want to print that account is being blocked, so something like that. All right, account blocked. So you cannot allow the user to keep trying to input anything because they've run out of chances. Then maybe in the event that they enter the correct pin, maybe we can put a success message right here. Right, it's still fine. Otherwise, maybe let's say, or rather we can just handle that down here. So we can say else print, actually no, we shouldn't put it down here because in the first attempt counter is going to be not equal to 0, right? It's going to be maybe 2 or 3. So yeah, maybe we should put it down here, but maybe I think let's just run it for now and see what we have going on. So exception handling, so enter the pin. So I'm actually going to deliberately enter something that's not a string, that cannot be converted to an integer. So I might go ABC, right? So you see that it says that we encountered a problem. Then it says that it is an invalid literal for integer with base 10, right? So in other words, it's just telling me that it's a fancy explanation that it has failed to convert the string ABC to an integer. Then maybe one thing that I can do is I can come here and say print, so that we can actually know the number of chances that we have left. So you have, then we can say counter you have this many chances left, right? So let's just go ahead and create the console. Right, just still in interactive mode, it was still running already. So let's run the script, right? So just as before, I'm going to put ABC as the first input, ABC. Then it says it tells me that there was a problem, and it tells me the kind of problem that occurred. And it says you have 2 chances left, right? And let's say I continue putting something that cannot be cast to an integer, right? You see that I now have 1 chance left, is it? So either I should put something that I should put the correct pin, which is 1 2 3 4, or I'm going to be blocked out of the account. So if I put 1 2 3 4, right, you see that actually it wasn't supposed to do that. Maybe let's just go back and check on the logic right here. So try attempt. So if attempt is equal to that, right, we simply want to break out of the loop. So we say if, right, attempt is equal to pin, right, then we can print login success, right? Then we simply want to break out of the loop in that case. So so that way we will not stay in the loop. All right, so let's just go ahead and save that, run the script one more time. So I'm going to put something that's not going to be converted to a string, an integer rather. Then I put 1 2 3 4, then login success. Now it's saying I have 1 chance left. So that's a little bit of syntax error that I have going on there. It's still decrementing. All right, it's because it's in the finally clause. So that actually goes on to show you what happens with finally. In the event that the code that you put inside of a finally clause or inside of the finally block right here, it's going to run despite what happens either in the try or in the except block, right? Whether we get an error or we provide the correct the correct login credentials, this code is going to run nonetheless. So that's why you saw in my output there that I get this. You have login success, then it says you have 1 chance left. So that code is going to run nonetheless. So that's the concept that I wanted to demonstrate. The finally clause, you have your try, right? You have your except, then the final is always going to run no matter what happens. So yeah, that's the essence of exception handling in Python. I think that's just about it for this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one.